Hello, this is the Growth League podcast. My name is Caleb Clark, and my mission for this show is pretty simple. It's to learn from marketers on how they're playing the great game of marketing leadership, their ideas, experiences, perspective, wins and losses, and the playbook that they've established over time. Listen, there's more than one way to lead a marketing team and a marketing function. So if you're a VP, a CMO, director, or someone aspiring to fill one of these marketing leadership roles in the future, tune in to learn from some of the best in the business.
I try to do more just like proactively growing my network in different spaces, and then having people send like other people my way, or staying posted for like, have people been laid off recently? They're open to work. Like I have like a Google Doc where I drop people's links in as I see people who I'm like, that could be a good fit if the timing lines up.
Today, my guest is Shannon Howard. She is the Director of Customer and Content Marketing at Intellum. We've had to cancel the last couple because I was sick and this and that. But anyway, we're here. So Shannon, thank you very much.
Yeah, Caleb, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Great. Just give us a bit of a background on your journey thus far as a marketer, as a marketing leader. Bring us up to present day.
Sure. I think I'm one of those people that unintentionally ended up in marketing. So I was going to an online health coaching school, and then my classmates started asking me to write blogs for them, do their email marketing, create their website. So I just kind of fell into doing that, which then turned into kind of like a side hustle, running my own business, doing that, and then kind of moving into the corporate space in doing marketing and curriculum development. Again, kind of unintentionally ending up in marketing. So they hired me to be a curriculum developer, but then to do all of go-to-market for their continuing education. So I worked for an online school, and which then kind of moved into like referral marketing, affiliate marketing, social media, just like all the marketings. I just kind of like fell into that. So that was my first time kind of leading a team as a marketer, and then transitioned more into tech and doing content marketing, co-marketing, webinars, things like that. And then have had a couple different roles in marketing around customer marketing, and kind of bringing me to today of around doing customer and content marketing for Intellum. So it's a learning management platform. So it brings in that background with like education, curriculum development. I built an education product for another company. So it kind of ties in that experience with this. My love has always been content, like writing, but also serving customers and talking with people and just kind of creating for people, not generic marketing campaigns, but like, who's Caleb? Who's on the other end of my screen, and what matters to them, and how do I create for that? Very cool.
Well, you certainly are not the first. It's amazing how many people happen into marketing, right? Or take a circular sort of, maybe not a circular, but a disjointed approach to getting there. I think it's very common.
Oh, yeah.
So Director of Customer and Content Marketing, I think we all have our definition of what that means, but Shannon, what do you get paid to do?
I think that varies on the day. My team does all content across channels. So video, written content, social media content, downloadable content, webinars, things like that. We do virtual and field events, trade shows, sponsorships. And then on the customer marketing side, everything customer, whether that's enablement, email marketing, expansion campaigns, advocacy, customer stories, things like that. So a little bit of everything. That was, what I wanted to do was kind of be involved in a little bit of everything. And it's cool because I think content, usually your content marketing team is focused maybe just on the blog, maybe some downloadable content, but actually working across video, written content, webinars, customer stories has actually allowed us to weave more of that together, where all of this content, I call it like working together in concert. Like you're a conductor of an orchestra, and this piece on social works really well with this piece of downloadable content, pulls in this customer's voice. So that's been a very interesting kind of bringing it all together into one function.
The idea of bringing it all together, the orchestra, the holistic approach to that is, why is that part of your philosophy or approach? Was there a time in the past where it was very channel by channel and you weren't realizing the benefits, or how did that come to be for you?
I think in a couple different ways. Usually these roles are different, right? Social is kind of this person over here. Content marketing is this person here. There's maybe a video person doing different types of video. You have people doing webinars, maybe like a marketing coordinator who's kind of coordinating those. Maybe that falls in your field marketing team sometimes. And so these things kind of work and they're a little disconnected because we might have one customer story, right? Like we did this great customer story series earlier this year. It was a video, but it was also turned into blog content, a formal case study. We had social assets for it. That customer came and spoke with us at a conference. They've been on a webinar. So there's kind of all these different medium specific or channel specific assets you create out of this one story, right? Or when I'm creating a customer story, not just thinking, how do I create a case study so it can go on my website and the sales team can use it, but are there ways that I can pull some of that into blog content that I can share it on social and kind of start creating more channel specific? Because I realized what made social media for B2B suck really was like just posting links and stuff that wasn't really engaging. And I saw all these people kind of creating for LinkedIn, right? And so how do we actually create for LinkedIn, but start with these bigger pieces of content and then modify them for these different channels? So now we're kind of, I call it maximizing the value, like getting the most mileage out of a piece of content, but also very specific to the channel. And then we're also not asking our customers, would you do this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing? We're able to kind of talk to them once and share that use case or that example. Maybe it is a case study, but we had someone kind of do a blog with us, which turned into social assets that turned into, a webinar that we're doing together.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it all kind of works together.
For you, no doubt there's some integration with the sales team or the sales function. How do you marry those strategies together? Is it a, hey, we're here if you need us, tell us what you want? Or is it more of a proactive sort of let's align to the sales journey and build? Tell me about that integration.
So that is, I would say we're pretty closely connected. Very fortunate to have a sales team that wants to partner with marketing and kind of like meet, and I think as a marketer, it's always been important to me to be friends with your sales team because those are the people like I can do my leg of the journey, but they've got to do, the next part. And so I need to be aware of what their part is, what's working, what's not working. So I can, kind of up funnel, maybe change things. But they're also very closely connected to our customers. So they're not just selling and then passing it off to customer success, but they're maintaining relationships with people. So they're making a lot of introductions too for those case studies or for webinars or for content. If I'm trying to lift up and highlight the voice of a customer in a piece of content, they're usually helping to make that connection too. So we meet. I actually had a call with people from our sales team this morning about a piece of content. We're kind of co-developing it together. They're like, this is the use case that I'm working on. You're kind of working on something similar. Let's just work in tandem so that they have what they need, but that I'm kind of creating this templatized asset that they can use in the future.
Gotcha. So would you and your team be involved through the entire customer cycle from sort of like, hi, nice to meet you, all the way through to, are you happy? Will you say nice things about us? How does that look?
Yeah. So we're creating content for each stage of the life cycle from pre-sale to post-sale, and kind of communications across that journey too, right? So we do have a director of demand generation who's serving up content to prospects. But we work together on, again, like content that we can share. So we have newsletters and it starts customer first, and then we kind of tailor it for prospects. But a lot of how I create content is you're a customer, whether you've bought from me yet or you haven't yet. So a lot of that content is really the same. It's going to be useful to you, whether you've bought or not, right? Because we have an education team that creates more of that product specific training and educational content. So then I'm focused on more of this marketing content. I can speak to things that'll help you, whether you use our product or not, whether you're ready for it or not.
Right. So would you, on the demand gen team, do you need to couple up with them pretty closely to be able to draw a sort of measurable impact of your effort? Or how do you, what system do you have in place, you and your team, so that at the end of a day or a week or a month or a quarter, whether or not you've done a good job or you've made impact?
Yeah, so we definitely work really closely together, where we've been trying to figure out over time, like together, because we both started in March. What are those metrics that we're measuring? And what is demand gen versus content, right? Because I personally don't have a content marketing philosophy that says my only measurement as a content marketer is output. And then you, demand gen person, can go serve that up to the world, and fingers crossed it works
Right.
and you get the leads that you want from it. That has to actually be a partnership where there should be some accountability on my part that this is driving leads, that it's driving qualified interest. So we work really closely together to figure out, what are people interested in? What are they not interested in? What are they downloading? How are we promoting this? What are some of the organic? And I tend to own more of those organic, whether we're sharing it on social, it's ranked for, or it's optimized for search. I own more of those organic channels of distribution. And then our demand gen person owns more of the paid and programmatic distribution.
Okay. Okay, that sounds great. That's a good sort of way of integrating. That's a tricky thing sometimes, especially it's nice that you came in at the same time, so you kind of got to co-create that holistic strategy. You told me on one of our previous calls that a lean and mighty team. You didn't use those terms, but how have you been able to, and what's your approach on resourcing the team appropriately so that you have X amount of capacity, but you got an endless list of things to do? How do you build that orchestra?
Sure. So we are using kind of like an agile sprint planning way of doing things. So we created our quarterly plan, kind of like, what's our business objectives? What are we going to do? What are the things that matter? Socialize that across teams to say, okay, we're all in agreement. These are the things we're going to do as a marketing team, which means also these are the things we're not going to do.
Right.
And then we have those all built into cards in Asana that we pull into sprints. Of course, other requests are going to come up. They already have. So then we're adding those in, and we're looking at, well, what's higher priority now? Does this video need to be created or this video? We're also looking at, how can we use AI? I feel like I'm a little weird about that as a content person, because I'm pretty particular about what I want and how I want it. But we're learning how to use AI for, let's say, like video generation. Can we take a long form video, turn it into shorts or reels and things that we can share on social? Can we use AI to help identify pieces of content that we can turn into social first pieces of content? And then in terms of like leaning on external resources, figuring out, okay, what are the skills, gifts, talents we have internally? And then where do we need augmented support? So we have someone that we outsource SEO content to. So I do that keyword research and I create the briefs. I go source kind of subject matter expert insights, and then they write. And that frees up some of my time, because those are some of the most time consuming pieces of content to create.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about Agile and Sprint? Because I mean, typically it's Agile and Sprint is for product development and software development. Mm-hmm. We also use that at my agency. And I think it's the best thing ever, right? Plan the work and work the plan, but it's not always straight line. So tell me a little bit about what are the ways of working within Sprint? Specifically, do you have sort of stand-up huddles that allow you to decide if you want to pull things in or not? Or tell me about the practice of Agile for your team.
Sure. So I worked very briefly as a product manager, so kind of saw that side of it, right? And I know I was talking to the CEO of Sasquatch, and he and I were talking about product principles that could apply to marketers.
Totally.
And planning is one of those, right? Of have the plan, work the plan, and chunk out work, so it's not this behemoth of a project, and we only see results after 6 months of working. We can ship and iterate. So, and we're still figuring this out. This is relatively new. We started maybe 2 months ago implementing this agile, but a test and learn approach of, okay, we're going to build out a basic board. We're going to build out cards. We're going to start to t-shirt size things, and then we're going to learn as we go. So we have sprint planning meetings. And what I ask everybody to do is like, look at new requests, look at your backlog, look at those things that are kind of in your like due at some point list.
Yeah.
And then pull in what you think you should be working on in the next sprint. And then when we have that sprint planning meeting, I don't necessarily go through one-on-one anymore. Like, are we doing this? Yes or no? Are we doing this? Yes or no? Okay. We have a graphic designer. I don't know her capacity. And she is figuring out for herself, like, okay, these are the things that I can commit to in the next sprint. Right. Or video, figuring out, okay, how long is it going to take me to produce a video, to edit a video, to write a script, things like that. So we're learning those things as we go. Everybody kind of nominates the things for their next sprint.
Yeah.
And then we basically go through, and I don't know, I use humor a lot. So I'm like, anybody feeling like I might die if I do all of this in the next 2 weeks,
Right.
And then from there we can say, okay, red flag, I think actually this is too much and I need some help prioritizing, or, I put these things in here because it seems like they have to get done. There's kind of this urgent priority around it.
Yeah.
But I could use help actually figuring out, okay, do we have to do this next sprint? Is there a fraction of this that we can do? And then we kind of have that discussion during sprint planning. And then we do have Monday, Wednesday, Friday kind of stand up huddles where we go through and kind of report on progress, any blockers, things like that.
That's awesome. It's very, this has been coming up a lot with people in my network. They're looking to implement Agile, but all of the documentation on how to do that is based on product release and that kind of thing. So I think this is a great example.
I also think so Agile Sherpas does one that's marketing specific. And I wanted to sign up for that. And my CMO was like, hold on, I think you may be diving way too deep. He was like, let's just start and learn, just establish a baseline and learn as we go, because it's going to be specific to each company. So I think if you start with kind of a basic board and a commitment to learning each time, okay, we committed to too much, or we actually didn't have enough, or we had these things come in mid-sprint. Maybe we actually need to remind people, hey, new sprint coming up. If you have anything new, let us know, so we're learning as we go. And I think implementing more of that lightweight, we don't have to have it perfect approach was actually really helpful, because my tendency is like, okay, let me go read the book on the thing.
Let's do it perfectly or not do it at all. But So you talked about t-shirt sizing. I'm assuming you meant that in terms of creating sort of a story points or whatever. Like when you're going into a sprint, how do you know when you're starting? And maybe this is advice for other marketing teams just starting this practice, but how do you know if a sprint is way too much or not close at all? And how do you as a leader refrain from judgment in that process of hey, that's a little conservative, or do you allow them to figure it out on their own? How do you understand velocity?
I think we're still figuring that part out.
Yeah.
You had asked me in preparation for this, what are your strengths and weaknesses? One of my weaknesses is definitely taking on too much. So a tendency to overcommit.
Right.
So I think we're figuring out, how do you story point things? And there's a lot that we have to consider too around. There's meetings that may be planned, maybe unplanned, right? So how do you factor in that time? How do you factor in travel time and reminding people, hey, it looks like you have 3 days off in the next sprint. You have a day off in the next sprint. I have a half day on Friday. So how does that impact our capacity? And right now it's more of a point of reflection for each of us of when we look at the work to be done and we have 10 days or 7 days, whatever our time is. Does that seem reasonable to commit to, and I, again, use humor. Are you going to be drowning? Am I going to get a call from your husband or wife, asking why I've assigned you to work? Am I going to get one of these phone calls, or do we feel like this is reasonable? Right. Because every person has to figure out for themselves. And some people, like you're kind of alluding to, might take longer to do a task than others. And that's okay too. Right. And I also have to understand, I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not a video person. I don't know, but I learned that working with developers and I would say to them, okay, on a scale of, totally, we could flip a switch to, I don't think you know how technology works. Where are we falling on the difficulty scale here? And sometimes they'd be like, oh yeah, actually it is a toggle. Or they'd be like, yeah, it's not how technology works and that we're not going to be able to do that, or it's going to take, months.
And over time, everyone starts to figure out what their story point threshold is on an average. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're kind of feeling it out, where I think we could probably get a lot more rigid with it, but I think too, our team is pretty creative where it would feel really rigid and inflexible for us.
Yeah. Okay. Here, my last question on Agile. I didn't plan to talk, but this is very interesting. if you're gonna implement an agile practice within a marketing function, content marketing function, is it critical in your mind to educate the stakeholders that you need to participate with, the sales team, demand gen team, to educate them on this is how we plan our work? So if you have a request in, this is how we handle requests. Has there been any of that for you, and how has that been successful?
We've kind of talked with other teams and said, hey, we're switching to this new process. It's going to allow us to plan out our work better and have a better idea of, what's going to get done when. And then each person, again, kind of created their own intake form. So I'm usually talking more directly with like customer success and sales for content ideas and input. I can be pretty flexible with the content calendar, but a video takes more effort than a blog. Right. So those we have kind of an intake form, or graphic design, there's an intake form for that. And then we kind of look at when does this need to be done by, right? That urgency versus, importance kind of thing. So we're looking at that, and it's been helpful because then you have salespeople coming to you saying, hey, can you do this? Okay, well, not this sprint, but if you want, I could create a card for that and we can look at it next sprint. And that's been helpful for them to see, okay, we've committed to work and we're committed to getting this work done, but we can get you, and our CMO is a big fan of don't say no, maybe it's not now, or we'd be happy to work on that next sprint, kind of giving some options there.
Cool. I'm glad you're doing this. It sets really good precedent for other teams to avoid that waterfall of hell, to-do lists. And so that's cool.
Yeah.
Shannon, for you, what's the hardest part for you in being a leader of a function and a leader of people within your team? What's the part that just you're still trying to figure out, causing a bit of pain?
Probably figuring out that capacity thing, because everybody's capacity is different. And then also figuring out, so our CMO said to me recently, I feel like you're overwhelmed, but you want to be that way. He said, you live on the edge of overwhelm, but I think you like it like that. Right. So understanding too, there's some of us who, I'll be like, who can't wait to get to the end. Like I had 5 weddings earlier this year, and I was like, cannot wait to get to the end of this. So that there's not all this travel and craziness. Everybody was kind of laughing at me there because they were like, Shannon, you're gonna have a million things to do in the summer and then in the fall. That you always have a lot going on. And so that's, some people are like that. And then other people, overwhelm is genuinely like, oh my gosh, I'm drowning and I can't, like, this is not what motivates me. So really figuring out what motivates people, what their capacity is, how they like to work, because I think we're all kind of figuring that out, that there's some things like I don't like really detail-oriented work. I call that my personal hell week, when I have to dig into data and numbers and like deep dives and things. It just takes so much concentration and energy for me. But then there are times when it's exciting in a way, because I'm like following a thread, for 3 hours. And that could be exciting, right? So figuring out for each person, like, what are those things that excite you? What are the things that drain you? What's your capacity? How would I know? Like I asked one of my direct reports, how would I know if you're not okay? And they were like, oh, you won't. It'll never show. And I was like, will you tell me? Please? So because some people have tells. Yeah. And then some people, like I had an employee before that their spouse would text me and be like, please help, because they'd be working after hours and I'd have to go like steal a laptop or like, right. Do something, shut them out, like lock them out of everything for a weekend. And then other people who you have to kind of proactively ask and figure out, where are you at today? Are you actually good? What's going on, and it's not the same for everybody. So I think figuring out each person is just kind of the forever challenge.
Yeah. It's the most variable element of it all, right? Is
mm-hmm. And it changes, depending on the season for people.
Yeah. So having that framework, or that, I guess, culture amongst your team of being able to share these things and feeling safe to do so, is important to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being able to know what's going on too, because there are things in your life that impact your work too. And I think we forget that sometimes, like work impacts life, but life impacts work. And there may be, sometimes when I'm stressed at work, it's not work. It's because I have this commitment and that commitment. And I'm in the classroom teaching and I have all these other things, travel or whatever going on. And I'm trying to get my work done, but I have all these things disrupting me from that.
Yeah.
So figuring out that with people too.
Yeah. Well, if you find the answer key, please share it. I'm sure a lot of people would love to know. On the flip side, what would you consider sort of your competitive advantage personally as a marketing leader?
Ooh, competitive advantage. I think I don't want to say naturally an encourager. I think I've had to work on that a lot. Where you ever heard like the 5 love languages?
Yeah.
So there's a version called the 5 languages of appreciation for the workplace.
Okay.
So similar, but learning how to appreciate people in the way that they understand and being really intentional about, there's research out there. What is it like? We remember negative things, but you need like 5 or 7 positive things to offset the negative thing, where it's very easy to only give negative, critical, constructive feedback, but to actually say, hey, like, great job with this, or I love what you did there, or thanks for getting that in on time, or, high five this, just recognition. I think that's one of my strengths and like a way to kind of build culture on the team where people learn to recognize each other too. Like I want to build a culture where it's not just me noticing things, but actually encouraging other people to notice people and give them I call it like high five, shout out for the job well done.
Yeah. What do you think about, this was brought up to me recently by a coach, but what do you think about the idea of being really specific with your, shouting people out? Has that been something that you've been able to use effectively? I've understood that not just giving high fives, but high five very, very specifically for this behavior. Is that part of your approach?
Yeah, I think I try to aim for frequency, which I think in a way leads to specificity, because it's not, okay, if I look back at the last quarter, Caleb has been really great at this one thing. It's like, in the past week, Caleb went out of his way to do this, or, learned this new skill set, or encouraged this teammate in this thing, or unblocked someone with this, or, we had someone from our education team and just did demos at a live event for us and killed it, so I was like, way to go to this guy for trying something new and doing a great job. So I think if you think about like recency and frequency, it tends to be more specific because you're calling out a very specific thing that just happened, rather than waiting for like an annual review or a half year.
That's a good point.
Type thing.
Yeah. Frequency, recency, specificity.
Yeah. I think what I've heard about the specificity is it helps people to know like what does great look like, instead of, hey, thanks for being a great teammate. Well, what behaviors make up a great teammate, or is there anything that I did recently? And also I think there tends to be a bit of a bias in terms of who gets the specific feedback, so that specific feedback can be helpful of, hey, I appreciate you giving me a heads up on this project here so that I would know that it was delayed.
Right. I've also heard trying not to celebrate too much the outcome, but the steps leading up to the outcome. Okay.
Yeah.
As Intellum grows and as the mandate grows for your team, where do you anticipate being an area of gap that needs to be filled? Do you and your team have a good understanding of what the 12 months down the road looks like in terms of how you're going to need to evolve as the company evolves?
Could you repeat that question? Because I think my internet just cut out in the middle of it.
So as Intellum grows and as the mandate on your team grows, do you have a pretty good understanding of where some gap areas that you're going to have to fill? Like, what does evolution look like for you guys over the next 12 months as Intellum grows and its customer base grows?
Yeah, I'm looking at, so kind of doing, I don't know if this is the right approach. It's just how I'm approaching it, is like event strategy, content strategy, customer marketing strategy, and then kind of rolling that up into a bigger picture, because that is kind of my function area. And then looking at, well, what do we need to make that happen? And so I have a really ambitious vision for content. Customer marketing is a newer function in terms of actually having a developed function. I think a lot of people do kind of random acts of customer marketing until they have a formal function. So building that out and then figuring out, well, what does that look like in terms of headcount planning or budget planning? And our CEO is a big fan of AI and its use to like streamline things, speed things up. So as a team, we're committing to learning more about how can we use AI or their tools that can help us do our jobs more efficiently, more effectively.
Yeah.
So investing there, not just financially, but also time-wise to learn some of these new tools and how to use them well. And then looking at the headcount as well of, okay, if this is going to be our marketing plan for 2024, who do we need on the team? Do we have those skill sets, right? Because I always say, like, I can't do this on my own back. Like, and so there's almost like the plan with, if this is our current team, our current capacity, but if we want to grow into this other plan, here's the capacity that we need. And I know each like marketing leader and the marketing organization is kind of doing that to say, okay, here's what we can currently commit to. And then, but here's what we want to be able to do next year. And here's the resources that we need to do that, budget and headcount wise.
Right. So when new headcount is required, do you have pretty good established approach for, because I don't know how it is in North Carolina, but big topic up here is talent is really, really hard to find and really hard to retain. So how do you build the bench for scenarios when you need that growth?
I am pretty active in online communities for marketing, customer education. And I try to connect with people on LinkedIn. So like keep an eye out for people that I might want to have on my team or poach at some point. And that's personally how I prefer to hire too, because I think a lot of hiring managers, they write a job rec, they post it, they get 400 applicants, and like it's just so much work to weed through everybody. But then also, it's not a great candidate experience to have 400 people apply to a job. You can't like personally respond to every single person and say, hey, I'm sorry, you're not going to be a good fit for this job for XYZ reasons. We've rejected your application or not moved you on. So I try to do more just like proactively growing my network in different spaces and then having people send like other people my way or staying posted for like, have people been laid off recently? They're open to work. Like I have like a Google Doc where I drop people's links in as I see people who I'm like, I mean, that could be a good fit if the timing lines up.
Right. So rather than waiting till the actual job posting is up to do this, you're kind of an evergreen approach to talent.
Yeah. I feel like everybody should have a people in their back pocket that are like, if I could bring you on, that'd be great. It's not always going to work out, right? Like there could be people who are available now who may not be available when I'm ready to hire because they may get a job between now and then. And that's fine too. But that's where I think keeping kind of a broad lens and kind of that evergreen approach, so it's not like completely cold.
I love it. My last question for you is this. Besides getting a paycheck, presumably every couple of weeks, why do you care about your job and about the organization that you're building this marketing function for? Why do you care?
That's good. Part of it is probably just personality. I'm inclined to care just in general, probably way too much. It's also this kind of industry, right? I was a product manager for an education product, curriculum developer, ran a customer education program. And I just think this is such an underserved industry, kind of like customer marketing and like customer success was a handful of years ago. It's just not very well understood. There's a lot of room for growth for it. And so I'm excited to kind of be part of that and be able to create for other people in the industry and whether it's creating content that helps them to do their job better or prove the value of the work that they're doing, networking with people. I could be having like the worst day personally, and I get on a phone call with someone and it's just the whole day changes because it's great to like talk to other people who are doing the work and hear the things that they're working on. I think it's very exciting. And then I think from like a team perspective, we have a great team and we have a lot of fun. And I like each person, individually as a person. And I also think when you're a leader of any variety, whether you're manager, supervisor, team lead, director, VP, C-level, you just get the opportunity to like make someone's day, right? Like I can, give a compliment and it does totally change someone's day. Or I can leave them we have a performance management system and I like to go in there and like leave some kudos in there for people. And I think, yeah, when you think, oh, I get to actually have this kind of outsized impact on people's day. They spend 40 hours a week at work. Might as well make it fun. Might as well have it be a rewarding experience. There's always going to be things that aren't awesome about work, like, but can we offset that? That you get the opportunity to do that throughout the week. I think it's part of it too. Like, if we all have to work, might as well do like meaningful work and make it fun.
I love it. I really like the way you're playing this game of marketing leadership, and I really appreciate you sharing your tales from the road and how you approach things. I think a lot of value for me and for our listeners. So everyone, Shannon Howard, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. I appreciate great questions. This is a fun time.
Awesome. Thank you.